Good evening. Today, I'd like to look at the Gospel from the 27th Sunday in Ordinary Time. And I'd like to start out by reading a little bit from it. Jesus said to the chief priests and the elders of the people, "Hear another parable. There was a landowner who planted a vineyard, put a hedge around it, dug out a wine press in it, and built a tower. Then he leased it to tenants and went on a journey." In our gospel today, Matthew's opening line struck me, and particularly that line, "Hear another parable." Why did Jesus speak so many parables? If you add up all of the parables in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, it's about 42 of them, different parables. Some of the powerful, they're all shared in all three, but some also are only found in Luke and some only found in Matthew. But the ability to reflect upon what a parable is, and then getting into why he would use those passages, I think is an important thing for us to do. In the New Testament, the term parable is used pretty broadly. It simply refers to any type of story that compares one thing to another. It takes a common experience, such as a landowner planting a vineyard and leasing it out, as we have today's gospel, and letting it express a religious reality. Typically, realities that are pretty challenging. Obviously, Jesus thought that parables were the most effective way of communicating. Scholars have reflected on parables, highlighting the fact that a parable, a story, appeals to the reflective capacities of the hearer. It obliges them to ask themselves why such a story is being told at this point. You ever see a good storyteller, right? They engage you in the story. Jesus' parables do not allow you to be just a coldly judging, neutral hearer. It is thought that a parable is performative. It aims at and brings about an existential change in a person. That this challenging story speaks to a truth that I know is there, and I have to deal with it. It strikes me that for Jesus, telling a parable is never just a fun exercise. It has a profound meaning to it. And it's a lot of work. And I kind of wonder sometimes, why did Jesus go through so much work for this? In today's gospel, Jesus could have jumped to the conclusion of a story. The kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to a people who will produce fruit. Boom. You got the fact, and I'm done. I'm done with you. That's what we like to do sometimes. But Jesus never abandons anyone. He acknowledges that the Pharisees and the elders are going to reject him, but he gives them this whole story to enter into. In the gospel, God is the landowner who planted the vineyard and created a usable space. There is a sense that this tells the story of the prophets throughout the centuries who were rejected, and finally his son who was rejected. Jesus tells this story not as a prophetic or a prophet predicting the future. Rather, he is telling the story to imagine a different outcome. Can these words perform an act upon the Pharisees and elders? Can these words perform an act upon us? What we find is that Jesus' parables is a profound act of love. He takes the time to tell a story which might change your heart. This gives this parable a particular weight for me. When we look at the Greek and see like a literal translation of the opening statement, it's quite striking. The Greek kind of gets this and then. So the landowner planted a vineyard and put a hedge around it and dug a wine press in it and built a tower and leased it to tenants and went on a journey. It's like, whoa, okay, God has done a lot for us. How do I respond? Am I thankful? Right after this, Jesus acknowledges that God's generosity has been rejected at each turn. But God keeps offering to us these same parables, hoping for a different outcome. Jesus' use of parables has been described as his eternal patience, never losing hope for their, or I would say our, conversion. God's eternal patience. I pray that this gospel, this parable, will change your heart, will change my heart as we read it, and can be said of us that we receive the kingdom of God and be the people that will produce its fruit. God's blessings upon you. May you be strengthened in faith, hope, and love. And may the parables of Jesus work on you, be performative upon your heart. God bless.